Today we're going to tell you a story. It's one that comes to us from South Korea.
Yeah, and it's a really deeply unsettling one. It involves a mother, her missing child, and, well, some very strange and tragic beliefs about dogs.
It really is. The story unfolds in a way that's quite chilling, captivating maybe, but also pretty terrifying.
Definitely. The tone is serious. It has to be, given the events. It's just incredibly sad. The material we've got paints a really grim picture.
Right. And the details we've received outline this chain of events that led to just a devastating outcome for a very young child.
So our goal here is really to follow this story as it's laid out in the sources we have.
Exactly. To try and understand the different factors, the events that contributed to this tragedy. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay. The story, as presented, opens with a woman named Choi Sonmi. She goes to the police in Seoul.
And she's reporting her son missing.
Yes, her 3-year-old son, we'll call him Kim for this story, she reports him missing.
But right away, the police noticed some things weren't quite right. Some red flags, according to our sources.
Yeah, definitely. For starters, she reported him missing on August 14th, 2014.
Okay.
But the thing is, she claimed he actually disappeared way back on July 12th, over a month earlier.
Over a month. That's a huge delay for a missing toddler.
Exactly. And on top of that, her demeanor was apparently very calm, not, frantic or distressed like you'd expect.
Not the reaction of a parent whose child has been missing that long.
Right. And when the police pressed her for details, specifics about the disappearance.
Which they obviously would.
Of course. Her answers were vague. She said she couldn't really remember certain details, just foggy.
So the delay, the calmness, the vagueness, that must have made the police very suspicious.
Absolutely. Understandably so. Their initial thoughts, based on the material, leaned towards maybe abandonment or even perhaps she'd sold the child.
Horrible thoughts, but given the circumstances.
Yeah, they didn't initially suspect the much darker reality of what had actually happened to Kim.
So what was behind her strange behavior, that month of silence?
Well, this is where the story takes a really disturbing turn. The information we have indicates that Sunmi had become deeply involved with a group. Essentially, a cult known as Jinsamo, and its leader was a woman called Kim Ha-soon. We'll refer to her as Ha-soon.
Jinsamo. And what was their core belief? Sources mentioned something about dogs.
Yes, that's central to it. They worship Jindo dogs.
Worship them, like literally.
Yes, they believe these dogs had powerful spiritual energy, that they were basically deities, gods in dog form.
Wow. Okay, worshiping dogs, that's unusual. What did that actually involve in their daily lives?
The documents describe this communal living setup. At first, there were maybe 20 or so members living together in Seoul. They later moved first to Jeonju, then Yongin.
And their lives revolved around these dogs.
Completely. They cared for about 10 Jindo dogs as if they were actual gods. Get this. The dogs had special beds raised off the floor.
While the members
slept on the floor. The members had tasks like meticulously cleaning the dogs' living areas. They even had to use formal, respectful language when talking to the dogs.
Formal language? To a dog?
Yeah, like calling one specific dog Master Bori and actually bowing to him.
Bowing?
Yeah.
It's an extreme level of reverence.
It really was. And taking them out wasn't simple. The dogs were often carried or pushed in strollers.
And strollers.
Yes. And each dog needed multiple attendants for its walk. Sometimes 3 or more people just for one dog. They even had a shrine on the rooftop for rituals and offerings for the dogs.
A rooftop shrine for dogs. Okay. This focus is intense. How did this connect to their beliefs about people? Was there a link?
There was a crucial and ultimately tragic link. A core belief was this. If one of these sacred Jindo dogs barked at someone, that person was believed to have bad luck, or worse, to be possessed by an evil spirit.
Oh. Okay, I can see how that could become dangerous.
And it did. That specific belief became the trigger for what happened next.
So how did Choi Sun-mi, the mother, get drawn into this world? It seems so extreme.
Well, the sources say Sonmi was in a really bad place before she joined. She had gotten into serious debt from a failed business venture like network marketing.
So financially vulnerable.
Very. And emotionally, too, it seems. It was during this difficult time that she met Ha-soon. The sources describe Ha-soon as a sort of senior figure to her, maybe a mentor, someone she looked up to, sunbae, perhaps.
And Ha-soon offered support.
Exactly. Emotional support, guidance. She seemed like a lifeline when Sonmi was really struggling and feeling desperate.
So Sunmi was fragile? Looking for answers, maybe?
Precisely. And Ha-soon recognized that vulnerability. She gradually, carefully introduced Sunmi to the Jinsamo beliefs and practices.
Preying on her desperation.
It fits a pattern, doesn't it? Cults often target people at low points, offering community, purpose, answers, and then creating this dependency. Sunmi became very susceptible to Ha-soon's influence.
How did this affect her family life, her marriage?
It was disastrous. Her behavior changed completely. She became obsessed with the cult's texts, their teachings, and the money.
The donations.
Yes, huge financial strain. She started using her husband's credit cards to make these donations to the cult, supposedly for spiritual energy.
How much are we talking about?
Tens of millions of won over time. The sources mention frequent transactions, sometimes 50,000 won, sometimes over 100,000 won in just one day. Just draining their finances.
Using her husband's cards for that. I can imagine the fights.
It led to a massive argument and ultimately divorce. They divorced in February 2014. By that point, her loyalty was almost entirely with Ha-soon and the cult.
Did she get any settlement? What about the kids?
Her husband recognized how damaging Ha-soon's influence was. He agreed to a settlement of 30 million won.
Okay.
And monthly child support of 1 million won for their 2 children.
I had 2 kids.
Yes, a 6-year-old daughter and the 3-year-old son, Kim.
And this is critical. Who got custody?
Despite everything, her instability, the extreme cult belief Sunmi was granted custody of both children.
Wow. Okay. So she gets the settlement, the kids. What happens next? Does she move into the cult building?
Yes. And here's another twist. She received that 30 million won settlement.
Yeah.
And immediately donated the entire amount to Jinsamo. Out of gratitude, apparently, because they offered her and her children a place to live.
Gave away her entire settlement.
Then she and her 2 young children moved into the communal building with the other members and, of course, the dogs.
And you said earlier the cult demanded quiet.
Right.
To avoid disturbing the dogs.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolute quiet and subdued behavior. Now, picture a normal, energetic 3-year-old boy in that environment.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Toddlers are noisy, they cry, they run around, they have accidents.
Precisely. Young Kim's natural behavior was the complete opposite of what the cult demanded. He was seen as a disturbance.
Did anyone in the cult help Sunmi with the kids? Give her any support?
No. The sources are clear. She got no help. And Ha-soon, who had initially seemed supportive, grew increasingly annoyed by Kim's normal toddler actions. She kept telling Sunmi to control him, to keep him quiet.
The child was just an inconvenience in their dog-focused world.
It seems that way. And this simmering annoyance, combined with their beliefs, led to something truly horrifying.
The turning point you mentioned earlier.
Yes. It happened when one of the sacred Jindo dogs barked at 3-year-old Kim.
Oh no. And according to their belief.
That meant he was possessed by an evil spirit. Ha-soon immediately declared this was the case. She used the dog's bark as justification to intervene.
And Sunmi, did she believe it her own son?
Tragically, yes. The sources suggest she believed Ha-soon implicitly. The manipulation, the brainwashing, whatever you want to call it, was that profound. She saw Ha-soon as this authority figure who knew the truth.
Trusting the cult leader over her own maternal instincts, it's heartbreaking.
It is. And that's when the so-called exorcism began, which was, in reality, just horrific abuse.
How did it start?
Initially, by depriving Kim of food and sleep, basic needs denied to a toddler.
Torture.
And it got worse. The abuse escalated to physical violence. Ha-soon started hitting the child.
Hitting him. With what?
Objects. Like a fly swatter or, horrifyingly, a wooden ladle. Like a large cooking spoon.
Hitting a 3-year-old with a wooden ladle.
Yes. And this wasn't a one-time thing. This abuse went on for about 5 months.
5 months of this?
Yes. Over that time, Kim became, as the sources describe, incredibly thin and was covered in bruises, constantly injured.
But his mother, Sunmi, she saw this happening.
She witnessed it. She was there, and she didn't step in.
She didn't try to stop it.
It seems not. The belief was so strong, apparently, that Ha-soon was helping him, driving out this evil spirit. It completely overrode her duty to protect her child.
This is incredibly difficult to hear.
It is, and it leads to the tragic end. July 7th, 2014.
The day Kim died.
That morning, Ha-soon was apparently furious because Kim had wet the bed during the night.
Angry over a bedwetting accident. A 3-year-old.
Yes. She declared that a more severe ritual was now necessary.
More severe than months of beatings.
Apparently so. The final, fatal beating began. Hasoon dragged Kim into a room and started beating him relentlessly with that wooden ladle.
Where did she hit him?
All over. Arms, legs, his head, his face. Just brutal.
For how long?
Nearly an hour. It lasted until about 11 a.m. And then Kim became motionless.
And his mother. Sonny was there? She saw this?
She witnessed the whole thing, the entire beating.
I can't even imagine.
And then, this next part is almost unbelievable. Hasoon, after beating the child senseless, handed the wooden ladle, probably covered in blood, to Sonmi.
Handed the mother the weapon. Why?
And told her to hit him more. Said it would make the spirit leave his body.
What did Sonmi do? Did she?
She took the ladle. According to the sources, she took it. She went over to check on Kim.
He realized.
And realized he wasn't moving. He was still unresponsive. She carried his small body to her room, tried to give him food or water, anything, but it was too late. He was gone.
She knew her son was dead.
Yes. The realization hit her. But even then, the extent of the cult's control is just staggering. Her first instinct wasn't 911, it wasn't the police.
No, what did she do?
She told the other cult members. She informed Hasoon that Kim had died.
And their reaction wasn't grief or panic about consequences.
No! The collective decision, led by Hasoon, was immediate. Cover up, dispose of the body, hide the crime.
A conspiracy? How do they plan to do it?
The first plan involved burying him. Another female member, named Lee Min, suggested burying the body on a mountain near Jeonju.
Jeonju, where they had that smaller cult branch.
Exactly, near the home of an elderly member there, Mrs. Park. Hasoon ordered Mrs. Park to go out and dig a grave.
An elderly woman digging a grave for a murdered child.
That night, Hasoon, Sunmi, and Lee Min drove Kim's body there. It was about a 3.5-hour drive.
Driving through the night with his body.
Wrapped in cloth, placed in a small wooden coffin they had gotten. When they got to Jeonju around 7 p.m., they were met by others.
More accomplices.
Yes, Lee Min's partner, a Mr. An, and maybe 1 or 2 other cult members were there to help bury the coffin. So now you have quite a few people involved, aware of the murder and the cover-up.
But the body didn't stay buried there for long.
No. Only about 3 days later, there was a problem. A local cult member reported seeing wild boars digging near the burial site.
Oh, God. They were afraid the body would be uncovered.
Exactly. Fear of discovery. So they had to act again. Hasoon and Sonmi went back.
They dug him up.
They dug up Kim's body. And this time, they took him to be cremated.
Cremated? To destroy the evidence completely.
Pretty much. The sources state they then scattered his ashes in the Samjin River in Imsil. Now, there was no body.
So the body is gone. Why did Sonmi then wait almost another month before going to the police with that missing person story?
The thinking, according to the sources, was driven by Hasoon again. Nearly a month after the cremation, Hasoon started worrying.
Worrying about what?
Kim's father, he paid child support. He might want to see his son eventually. If Kim couldn't be produced, that would definitely spark questions, maybe a police investigation they couldn't control.
So the missing person report was preemptive, to control the narrative.
Exactly. Hasoon ordered Sonmi to file the report. Make it look like he disappeared somewhere else at a different time.
Which leads us back to August 14th, 2014, her going to the police station.
Right, claiming Kim vanished on July 12th while crossing a street near a department store in Busan. All lies, date, location, everything.
And like we said at the start, the police were immediately suspicious of her story and demeanor, even without knowing the horrific truth.
They were, but they had to investigate the claims she made. So they checked CCTV near that Busan location. Nothing. No sign of Sonmi or Kim.
Because they were never there.
Right. They interviewed her family, distributed flyers with Kim's picture, contacted like 140 child protection agencies, a full-scale search based on false information.
So it was doomed to fail.
Completely. They were chasing ghosts. The case went cold by January 2015, and as mentioned, there was later some public criticism about that initial phase. Why wasn't Sonmi pushed harder, given all the red flags?
A fair question in hindsight.
The years went by, nothing. The case was cold. But then, in 2016, it got reopened.
Why? What prompted them to look again after all that time?
The sources suggest it might have been related to Kim's age. February 2016, nearly 3 years after his death. He would have been around the age to start elementary school.
Ah, so maybe his file came up, triggered a review?
That seems plausible. This time, the renewed investigation really zeroed in on Sonmi. Her initial report, her strange behavior back then, it all looked even more suspicious now.
And they took a different approach.
A crucial step. They obtained her phone records, specifically from the period around the date she claimed Kim disappeared.
What did the phone records show?
This was the key. Her most frequent calls during that critical time weren't to family, weren't to friends looking for help. They were almost all to members of the Jindo cult.
The dog worshippers. That must have set off alarm bells.
Huge ones. The police immediately started investigating the cult itself, but they found the group had moved from Seoul. They'd relocated to Jeonju in late 2015.
But the phone records still provided a lead, right?
Yes. They used the records and other investigative means to trace the cult members to Jeonju. And there, they found someone critical, a former member.
Who was it?
It was Mrs. Park. The elderly woman Ha-soon had ordered to dig that first grave on the mountain.
The one who helped with the initial burial. Why had she left the cult?
The sources paint a sad picture. She was 69 by this time, quite ill. Apparently, she'd been expelled from the cult after she donated her entire pension to them.
They took her money and then kicked her out and she got sick.
That's what the information suggests. Deemed no longer useful, perhaps. The police found her living with her daughter, unwell.
Did she talk to the police right away? Tell them what she knew?
No, it took time. And incredible persistence from the police. They visited her more than 10 times. She was hesitant, maybe scared, sick.
But eventually?
Eventually, she agreed to speak, and she confessed.
What did she tell them?
She admitted that she had helped bury a child back in July 2014, a child who, she knew, had died from abuse within the cult.
July 2014. That matches the exact time frame of Kim's disappearance.
Exactly. This was the breakthrough. It directly linked the cult to a child's death by abuse right when Kim vanished. The police were now certain this had to be Kim.
So with Mrs. Park's confession, things must have moved quickly.
Very quickly. They immediately got an arrest warrant for Sanmi.
And they found her.
Yes. She was arrested on April 7th, 2017, charged in connection with her son's death and the disposal of his body. Interestingly, the sources mentioned she wasn't living with the cult anymore at that point, but apparently still clung to their beliefs.
Still under Ha-soon's influence even then.
It certainly seems that way, because her initial statement to police after her arrest was another false confession.
What did she say this time?
She claimed she killed Kim herself, alone.
Trying to protect Ha-soon, even after her arrest.
It shows the depth of the manipulation, doesn't it? Or the control. Still protecting the leader who orchestrated the whole horrific ordeal.
Unbelievable loyalty or fear.
But under intense police interrogation, that story crumbled. She finally broke down and told the full truth.
Pointing the finger at Ha-soon.
Yes. She revealed Ha-soon was the killer, described the beatings, and named the others involved in the cover-up Lee Min, Mr. On.
So now the police knew who the main players were and where to find them.
Exactly. They got warrants and raided the cult's current location. They had moved again, this time to Yongin in Gyeonggi province.
What did they find at the raid?
They found about 10 cult members living there, and alongside them, about 10 Jindo dogs.
The dogs were still there. What condition were they in?
This is striking. According to the sources, the dogs were immaculately clean, perfectly groomed, incredibly well cared for. Police even found the dog strollers.
So the dogs were living in luxury while a child had been tortured and killed in their midst.
The contrast was apparently shocking to the officers on the scene. This extreme care for the animals versus the absolute horror inflicted on a helpless child within the same group.
Who was arrested at the scene?
Kim Ha-soon, the leader, Lee Min, who suggested the burial, and Mr. An, Lee Min's partner who helped bury Kim.
Finally bringing them to justice. What happened at the trial?
The trial was held in June 2017. The court delivered the sentences.
What were they?
Kim Ha-soon, the leader and killer, received 13 years in prison.
13 years. For orchestrating the abuse, the brainwashing, the murder.
That was the sentence. Choi Sun-mi, the mother, got 10 years.
Okay.
Lee Min, who suggested the burial, got 3 years. And Mr. An and Mrs. Park, who helped with that first burial, received 2-year sentences, but they were suspended for 3 years, plus probation.
13 years for Ha-soon seems low, doesn't it? Given everything.
There was significant public criticism about that, yes. The sources note people felt it was lenient considering the prolonged abuse, the manipulation, and the actual murder.
After the trial, did more information come out about the Jindo cult itself? Was it really just about dogs?
Media investigations looked deeper, and what they found suggests the dog worship might not have even been the original point. Sources indicate the cult had actually switched from another religious sect before settling on the Jindo dog angle. Why? Because the previous sect wasn't profitable enough.
So the dog worship was just a calculated gimmick, a way to make money.
It strongly suggests that, yes. that the dog worship was primarily a tool to attract followers and, more importantly, to get money from them through donations.
It was all about financial exploitation.
It looks like that was the core function. We saw it with Sonmi losing her entire 30 million won settlement, Mrs. Park losing her pension before being thrown out. The sources even mention other members taking out loans to give money to Hasun.
Where did all that money go? Did Hasun just keep it?
Well, this is where another shadowy figure comes into the picture. The sources mention rumors, suspicions about someone known only as President Lee.
President Lee? Who's that?
Believed to be the real power behind Hasun. Maybe the puppet master pulling the strings, orchestrating the whole operation, and skimming the profits.
The one really benefiting from all these donations.
Allegedly. President Lee reportedly got very wealthy very quickly, something like 600 million won in property and cars. Wealth that's strongly suspected to have come from the cult members' money.
Was this President Lee ever investigated or charged in the murder case?
According to the material we have, that financial angle, the role of President Lee, wasn't fully pursued as part of the murder investigation.
So this person, and potentially the cult structure behind Hasun, might still be out there.
Disturbingly, the sources suggest President Lee and the cult, in some form, are believed to still exist.
That's a chilling thought, knowing what they're capable of.
It really is.
What about Sanmi's other child? Her daughter. Do we know what happened to her?
Just a brief update in the sources. The daughter, who was 6 during all this, is now living with her father, Sanmi's ex-husband. Hopefully safe and recovering.
Thank goodness for that. And Sanmi herself. Any indication of her state of mind after sentencing?
The sources mention she later expressed remorse, deep regret for her role in Kim's death, for the cover-up, feeling like she could never make amends.
It's hard to fathom the psychological state she must have been in.
It highlights the terrifying power of manipulation, doesn't it? How it could lead her to witness such horror passively and then actively participate in hiding it, even lying to the police. The cult's grip was just immense.
It's such a profoundly sad story, and it really serves as a stark warning, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Belief, faith, they can be anchors for people, but this tragedy shows how incredibly dangerous they become when they curdle into unquestioning delusion.
When that delusion makes you ignore basic morality, basic humanity.
Exactly. When it leads to harming others, especially those you're supposed to protect, it underlines why critical thinking, mindfulness, having that internal awareness, that sati, is so vital.
It's our defense mechanism.
It really is. Our primary defense against manipulation, particularly from groups or individuals who prey on vulnerability to gain control, to take resources.
Stories like this are just grim reminders, aren't they? To stay aware. There are all sorts of groups, all sorts of ideologies out there, and some are absolutely looking to exploit people.
We just have to hope that little Kim, after everything he endured, has somehow found peace.
Indeed. Thank you for listening to this story with us today.